This is BBC One. Now it's coming 7 o'clock, and that's breakfast time with John Stapleton and Sally Jones.
It's 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 7th of July, and this is the BBC's Breakfast Time programme. A very good morning to you. Today's main story. 192 people are still missing after the explosion late last night on an oil platform in the North Sea. One man is known to have died, and dozens of people have been injured, some of them seriously. A major rescue operation is underway using military helicopters and RAF Nimrods. Warships taking part in a NATO exercise have been diverted to the area to help in the search. 232 people were working on the Piper Alpha platform when the explosion happened. The cause isn't yet known. Sally Jones is with us this morning. Sally, good morning to you.
Good morning, John. Also in this morning's programme, we'll have the latest news from Aberdeen on last night's disaster on the Piper Alpha platform. And as the conclusions of the Cleveland Child Abuse Report are absorbed this morning, we speak to those most affected by its findings, parents, doctors and social workers, and to the minister who's determined it should never happen again.
Well, as I indicated, a huge rescue operation has been going on overnight in the North Sea after an explosion and a fire on board an oil production platform. 232 people were on the Piper Alpha platform, and so far only 40 have been accounted for. One man is known to have died, but 192 are still missing. There are fears that the death toll could be much higher. But the situation is still confused, and the numbers of casualties and survivors is not yet clear. The platform, owned by Occidental Petroleum, is 120 miles east of Wick. That's off the northeast coast of Scotland. And the rescue operation, which is being coordinated by the RAF, involves helicopters, a Nimrod reconnaissance plane from Lossiemouth, and a NATO task force, which has been diverted to the area. Casualties are being flown to hospital in Aberdeen. The explosion happened at about 9:30 last night. Rescue helicopters were scrambled immediately, and an emergency medical team was flown out to a semi-submersible rig nearby, which acted as an impromptu hospital. One man described the platform as a raging inferno. Another said it had been split from top to bottom. The blast is the third accident in the North Sea in a week. Last Friday, there was an explosion at BP's Sullom Voe terminal on the Shetland Islands, and on Tuesday, another platform also had a fire. Jane Frankie reports from Aberdeen.
At 3:20, nearly 6 hours after the explosion, the first survivors arrived back in Aberdeen, airlifted from the seas around the platform straight to the helipad at the Royal Infirmary. Fleets of ambulances and extra doctors and nurses have been standing by all night. So have anxious relatives. The first flight meant that for Alison and Fred Busby, the interminable wait was over. But for others, its arrival meant scanning the exhausted, shocked faces of those who could walk out of the ambulances and those who couldn't. As more of the Mercy flights came in, aircraft moved across to make room for the incoming survivors. Some were walking. Many were on stretchers, wrapped from head to toe in blankets. And a picture began to emerge about what happened on Piper Alpha.
He says it was just a complete bedlam. It was a nightmare out there. He says it was just smoke everywhere and explosions and everything. They just had to they went inside the accommodation, and they had to make their escape at one of the exits. And one of the guys told me the way he made his escape is he slid down a bunkering hose and then jumped into the water and made his escape and got picked up by this boats.
Did he have any idea how many people were injured or in the water with him?
No. I didn't get much questions to ask him about it.
Did he describe the blaze in any way at all, or was it just smoke?
It was explosions and fire and everything everywhere. And they just had to escape whatever way they could, so one of the guys said.
Others have told relatives that the platform was split in two and that there was very little of it left. It was obvious from the injuries we could see that most of the men had suffered burns. The airlift goes on, but for many wives and families, so does the waiting. as details emerge that nearly 200 men are still missing.
Jane Frankie, the reporter there. Well, in the air at the moment is Squadron Leader Garfield Porter. He's in an RAF Nimrod and he's been coordinating the rescue operation, and I hope that we can now speak to him. Squadron Leader Garfield Porter, you've been to the scene. Could you tell us what you've actually seen? Over. Good morning, Squadron Leader Porter. I'm sorry, I will repeat the question. You have been to the scene. Could you tell us what you've actually observed? Over. Well, we seem to be having some difficulty getting through to Squadron Leader Porter at the moment. Let me tell you that as far as we know, 190 people are still unaccounted for. The oil production platform, not a rig, is 120 miles east of Wick, off the northeast coast of Scotland. Some 21 ships are involved in the rescue and 11 helicopters. 6 of those ships are part of the NATO force, which has been diverted to the scene, and that includes vessels from the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Portugal, the Netherlands, and West Germany. And we also understand that a warship, the Blackwater, may well be at the scene already. It was due there about half an hour ago. Well, as you saw from that report a moment ago, our reporter in Aberdeen, Jane Frankie, has been to the hospital, and possibly we can link up with Jane now. Jane, good morning. Are you there?
Good morning, yes I am.
A distressing scene at the hospital. What is the latest from there?
Well, it really hasn't changed much. The situation hasn't changed much. There have been 7 helicopters in now who've brought in 27 men. 16 of them have been detained and 1 is serious. And there's also an unconfirmed report that a ship is on its way in with 20 men on board, but I must stress that that is an unconfirmed report.
Do you have any indication yet of the extent or seriousness of the injuries at the hospital?
They all look like burns. Those on the stretchers looked very seriously injured. They were completely covered from head to toe. Some of them were on drips as they were carried out of the helicopters.
And I understand a medical team from that hospital or from somewhere nearby has flown out. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, in fact, as far as I understand it, several medical teams have flown out, both from Aberdeen Airport and from the hospital. In fact, one helicopter, which brought some survivors in, stayed behind to take another doctor out.
Right. Now, alongside the oil production platform, the Piper Alpha, there is a semi-submersible vessel called the Tharas. Now, for the benefit of people, particularly in this part of the country, who don't know much about this production platform, could you tell us what that actually does? I gather it's been acting as an emergency hospital.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. The Tharos is called a vessel, but she looks to the uneducated eye like an oil rig. But she is the North Sea's finest firefighting vessel. She has huge, great hoses that she can play onto fires. But more importantly, I think in this situation, she has a full operating theatre on board. She is very much a survival vessel in the North Sea.
And I'm also told